Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here, and we are here for yet another vlog on my BPD therapy journey. So, I believe today is the 11th session. No, apparently it's the 10th. We've just hit the halfway mark. I'm not recording this on the actual day that I went to my therapy because I had a meeting with my care coordinator and also someone who runs the group and another woman who I'm not sure what her role is, but she was really nice. And they just had to check in with me at the halfway stage, and they were asking me how I was kind of dealing with it. Was it helping me? Did I have any suggestions for how it could be improved? So yeah, we had a nice chat and I felt very comfortable and confident, and I mean, I'm sure you probably know from watching these that I am finding it incredibly helpful, much more than I thought I would. I really questioned at the start when I was really bad, you know, how could this kind of thing help me? How could being in a group of people and just talking through this stuff help? Because it feels like the issues are so big. But I think it is having an impact, so I certainly feel more confident as a person. I mean, I'm keeping up these vlogs, for example, and talking to you about it. Also, I find that going to something weekly and having other people there kind of holds you to account a little bit, because it's like you want to be there with the group, you want to be going through that journey. It's also so nice to just be in a group of people who understand what you're talking about, because so often when you're trying to talk about like BPD stuff, I know I call it BPD in these videos, but it is it's known as other things at the moment. You know, it's they're renaming it to emotional intensity disorder. That's the new one, EID. The reason I use BPD is because I've been using it for years. I do prefer the emotional intensity disorder, but it's taking my brain a while to catch up with that. But yeah, when you try and talk about those kind of extreme thoughts, like other people around you don't get it, and in some ways it worries them as well, because obviously the suicidal impulses and those extremes can be very concerning to people who don't really understand it and realise how frequently we get them. So if you were to say to them that you got suicidal quite regularly, I think they'd be very worried. But obviously when you're talking to other people who have the same thing, they understand that it is just kind of like this background radiation in our lives, like it is just a constant. And also obviously they understand that there's a difference between being actively suicidal, like as a state of mind, which obviously we can get to, and just having that sort of background feeling of suicide would be nice. Again, it feels incredibly weird even talking about that to you guys, because I know some of you guys who watch this don't have it, so it probably sounds really like extreme and really scary, but it is just kind of a normal thing that a lot of us get, where we kind of feel like suicide is like the out, like things are really extreme and it's like this safe option in the background, like, oh well, if things get really bad, at least I can kind of get out. And I've spoken about it before as that feeling of like, I don't want to die actively at the moment, that if, say for example, like a car hit me and I did die, it doesn't strike me as, oh my god, what a terrible tragedy, you know. And I want to get to a point where the thought of that horrifies me like it should, like with other people. Like the other day I was getting really bad chest pains, and we had like a bug and it gave us like really bad chest pains, and I remember thinking to myself, like really casually and calmly, like, oh okay, maybe this is a heart attack. And I just kind of thought to myself, what a shame for my poor mum to like find me if I'm dead tomorrow, you know. But I didn't actually have any concern for my own life, and that kind of scares me, and I have to kind of, I'm trying to understand and get that kind of value for my own life, because at the moment I think about it in terms of, well, it would be terrible because of the impact on other people, so it would really upset like my grandma and my granddad and my mum and Dan. It would be devastating to Dan and my dad. I'm trying to learn that kind of value for my own life and to think about it as something that would be, you know, really upsetting to me. So I don't want to always feel like suicide would maybe be a good thing for me. I don't want to feel that, and I really don't want to. And I think I am getting there, because I have more hopes and dreams for the future than I used to. There have been times in my life where I just haven't thought about the future at all. So I just haven't imagined it. I mean, I didn't think I would live past 18 at all. So when I did reach 18, it was a huge shock, and I didn't know what to do, and I really just kind of froze up in my life, because I'd never imagined getting there. I'd always kind of dreamed and like hyped myself into, oh, it'll be fine because I won't be here by then. And then I was there, and then it was like, what do I do now? I haven't prepared for this, like what's going on? So that's a weird thing about being 25, because I have made it so much further than I imagined I would, and now it's like, well, I need to do something with my life, you know, I might be here for a while, I need to start planning. So yeah, I guess in a lot of ways I'm behind other people simply because I just didn't plan stuff. You know, I really didn't think I'd get to this age, and I also, I like I said, I'm missing a lot of memories, and there's chunks of my life where I really genuinely feel like I was completely mad. I know that's not the right way to put it, but just talking to you about it, I really feel like I thought about things that weren't real. I used to have psychosis. People around me didn't even seem to notice, which was very worrying. You know, I really was in such a bad way that I don't even feel like some parts of my life have been me. Like, I feel like I was so ill and not medicated and not sort of examining that and realising that was not right, that I genuinely just wasn't myself for such long periods of times. And it's really scary because sometimes I will suddenly get like some sort of flashback of the past, and it's like it's happening to another person. It's like it's not me. It does make me sad when I think about how ill I was, because I was so bad for so long, and in a way I used to have a sort of like almost an anger, and I used to feel like, well, why didn't anyone notice and help? But also, you know, we've come a long way in terms of mental health awareness, and I feel like back then people now are much luckier, because I feel like things are suddenly moving forward. There's been like this real push to talk about mental health issues, and I know that it's still incredibly hard, but there has been quite a big change from when I was a teenager. But yeah, I do I get sad sometimes, and I do feel anger, and I wish I didn't feel anger, but I feel angry, and I feel like, well, if that had been spotted when I was younger, and if I'd been medicated, then maybe things wouldn't have got so bad, and I would have had memories, and, you know, I could have had like normal, like more of a normal life. But, you know, that's not what happened, and I have to kind of come to terms with that. I don't want to live my life with regrets, because it's all happened, and I am lucky to be still young in my life and sorting myself out. Because even though it feels like, to me, it feels like I'm behind other people sometimes, because I am 25 and I'm so far behind in terms of like life steps that lots of people I know are taking. We are all taking our own paths, and I am still young, and I'm so lucky to be able to like sort through all this stuff and be well. So hopefully, I mean, I'm imagining my 30s are going to be great. My 30s are going to be like what should have been my 20s, I think. So I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, I went off on a real tangent there. But yeah, we didn't do a lot in our last session. We were mostly thinking about safe space, like imagery. So basically, we've been learning different tools to like distract us and to calm ourselves down, because obviously we get very high emotions and it comes on really quickly, and we have to get out of there before it gets to a 5, otherwise, you know, that's when we can hurt ourselves, and that's really bad. We've tried lots of things in this session. We've tried watching fizzy water, like the bubbles in the water. We've actually done like blowing bubbles itself, which which sounds silly, but it actually helps because of your breathing. Like if you're focusing on like breathing out, taking a long breath, like subconsciously while you're focusing on making the bubbles, it does kind of regulate your breathing. But this week we did do visualising a safe place for yourself, and this is something I've done before in CBT, and I think I've spoken about this in videos before, I'm not sure. But you imagine a place that makes you feel calm and in control, and you just kind of visually go there. And this is a technique which I don't use as much as I should, but it does work for me. I think maybe because I am someone who's very into creative writing, and my imagination is quite, I like my imagination. I'm someone with quite a lot of imagination. So it's something I can do if I'm in the right space for it. So I can practice like walking into that place and those feelings. So it can be any place at all, but they said probably best not to be like a place within your home, because it should be like a sort of outside escape kind of thing. So you could think of like a field, or you could think of a beach, or anywhere that makes you feel calm, or like I was imagining, like I guess you could have like even like just a pure white space, you know, just like walking into like pure whiteness. And mine is the grounds at Hever Castle, because I had a personal memory there, and I had a moment where I just felt so like at peace there. I went with my grandma and granddad, I think when I was 16, and Dan was there as well. And I remember Dan and I like walking in the grounds, and we sat next to the fountain, and I just felt so, like the feeling I can't even like describe, you know, and everything just feels right, and you just feel like you could, okay, I was gonna say something really unhealthy, but I guess this is part of the disorder. It made me feel like everything was so perfect, I just wanted to die. Like I just wanted to be dead in that moment, because it was so beautiful and perfect. And I had like Dan with me, and it was just wonderful, and it was warm but not too hot, and nature was everywhere, and this was the place where Anne had lived in her childhood, and it would just felt, I don't know how to describe it, but it's a very calming kind of place, because there's like a little stream and there's lots of trees and flowers, and it's just very like visually very appealing. So that's where I tend to go to. So I kind of visualise like lying on the grass, or just sort of sitting next to that fountain like I did with Dan, and I really focus on, like, I can hear the water and I can hear the wind in the trees. There's not a lot of it, I can just like hear it, and I can feel like the sun on my skin, but it's not like really hot. It's just like when you're in the sun and it's just kind of a little bit warm, and it feels really nice. And I think I feel very safe because I associate that with also being with like my grandma, granddad and Dan. So it has like a sort of inherent safety as a memory, even though when I think about it in my head, obviously it's just me and they're not there. I think it just yeah, it just feels really safe and nice. Something that they did suggest is that, you know, your safe place doesn't have to even be a real place. It could be somewhere that you've read about in a book or something like that, or in a TV show. Now for me, obviously I've got loads of places that I could think of that are related to TV stuff, like I'm just thinking like the TARDIS, or I'm thinking like the Woolpack from Emmerdale, or I'm just thinking of like loads of stuff like the Umbrella Academy. But for me, those things don't work as a calming space, because I'm too tied to those stories and the stories of other people, and they create a sense of excitement and like big feelings, and that's kind of what I want to step away from. So mine had to be a more kind of neutral space. But you could think of something like even like Hogwarts or something like that. I also do think, and this is just something that I do, but I find it does feel good sometimes to actually use my fictional characters that I really connect to, and use them to kind of help me feel like calm. Like if I imagine that those people are kind of surrounding me and that they've got my back, I know it sounds really silly, but it makes me feel kind of safe. Sometimes when, obviously we've been learning our like affirmations, and it's kind of all very well to kind of read them on here and talk about them, but it's hard to actually get them in your own head, you know, to have that positive vision of yourself and be kind to yourself. And I find it hard to do that. For me, it just doesn't really work. So I tend to, this sounds so silly, but I tend to imagine like a character I really care about saying those things to me. So again, like, because my imagination is quite good and I can really bring up a character's voice in my head and the way they would say something. I think maybe because obviously I like writing, and I'm doing a creative writing and English lit degree, and I'm quite good at that. I can really imagine it in their voice, everything, and I can almost hear it. So sometimes I will think of a character and, you know, I get a bit of like my affirmations and my pep talk from them. It sounds really silly, but like the other day I was thinking about like, it's really weird, I was thinking about like Diego Hargreaves from the Umbrella Academy. My favourite is actually Klaus, but I feel like Klaus isn't really that in control of his own life, so he'd be more in my boat. But yeah, Diego is kind of like the character that supports him a bit, and in my head, honestly, I was just thinking about like what would he say, and I was thinking about those affirmations and those positive things coming from him, and it actually kind of really helped, as weird as that sounds. Also, something I've learned to utilise as someone who really likes creative writing and like writing of the characters is to be more forgiving to myself by viewing myself as a fictional character, which again sounds really strange, but when I think about the characters that I really like, they're usually characters who are quite like flawed. Even if they're really good characters, they've like made mistakes, or they do things that are wrong, and sometimes they snap at people, and sometimes they're not, you know, they're not perfect, because the characters you really love are rarely perfect characters. And I kind of like try to be a bit more forgiving to myself, because I think, right, look, you still love these people, right? And they are flawed people, and you love them and you care about them and you understand them, and obviously you've got to have a lot of compassion for different kind of situations as a writer to write a character. So I kind of think about it like that, and I think, right, okay, if I was a fictional character, it's okay. This would be a low, but I would still have good qualities as a character, and I'd probably still have people who liked me as a character. Something else that they're teaching us in like distancing is when we do our first sort of distancing activity, like we do some sort of like chill out thing. So we like sit in our chairs, and one of the people who runs the group usually kind of goes through the whole thing that you'd get in ASMR. So they'll say something like, okay, so make sure you're comfortable, and then make sure there's no tension in your body. So you're thinking about like all the different parts of your body, and you start to realise how tense you are. And I have started to realise that I am always so tense all the time. So yeah, that's something I'm trying to work on. I find myself all the time feeling like on edge, and like I'm always like jiggling like my leg or something, or I feel like my jaw is tight, or I'm kind of ready to like fight or flight all the time, and I obviously know why that is in myself, you know, that I don't relax very easily. I'm always kind of switched on, even when I don't want to be. I'm kind of like ready all the time, and I kind of want to kind of stop that. So I've been trying over the last week or so to, like, even when I'm just watching TV, to kind of just chill my body language out. So if I feel like I'm being a bit stiff or something, just take a deep breath, like allow my arms to relax, and that's something I'm still working on. So I'm trying to do that, but it's weird when you realise like how stressed you must be because you're just constantly like, ugh. I saw my friend this week. This is my friend who I've spoken about before, and she was the one who went to France for a while. I've known her for ages. I've known her since we were at school. She's a really, really close friend of mine. She's like family. Like, we call each other sister, but like she feels kind of like a cousin to me, you know, like she does feel like family. And we were working on something this week. She had some sort of like assignment thing that we were working on together, and she had written this piece of writing which kind of referenced me in it. I won't get into like why and that kind of thing, but yeah, I was kind of in it, and she wrote some really nice things about me, and I didn't want to show how touched I was at the time, but oh my god, it was so amazingly nice, and I couldn't believe it. Like, she was saying such nice things about like how she admired me, and just to hear that from a friend, you know, it's amazing, because I feel like, oh, I don't know, I feel emotional just thinking about it right now, but it's really weird, and I really liked it, and I didn't really know what to do with it, and I'm trying to kind of think about it, and because obviously last week we were doing about affirmations and positive messages from other people around us to try and boost our confidence and think about how other people see us positively. And so yeah, that meant a lot, because I feel like as a person I'm not the best sort of friend at all. I care a lot about my friends and I'm very loyal to them, but I'm bad with keeping in contact, and sometimes if I get very low I kind of isolate myself a bit, which can be difficult. And this friend of mine has been amazing, like throughout my life, whenever I've been really low, like her, and also like her mum is amazing as well, like her mum and dad. They've been like, come on, we'll go somewhere, and I've been taken to see shows and things, and like amazing, lovely opportunities I've had because of her. But yeah, I know I'm kind of bad at that, so it was nice to feel kind of valued, like I kind of offered something to the relationship, because obviously my friends mean a lot to me, and she means an awful lot to me, and it's just nice to know that I'm giving something also to the relationship, so I don't feel like this like burden friend now. So that's really nice, but I struggle with that, feeling like I'm like the burden person that people are just kind of putting up with in a way. So that was nice. One of the women who runs the group, when we were having our meeting after the last session, she told me that like I was nice to have in the group and that she enjoyed having me in the group. And again, like, that made me feel ridiculously happy, because I always worry that people are thinking like, oh, like who is she? Like, oh, I don't like her very much. I'm so critical of myself. So yeah, that was really nice, and I'm trying to kind of like absorb that stuff instead of just being like, oh, it's just, they're just saying it, you know. No, I'm trying to absorb it. So like, people do care about me and people do like me, and yeah, that's nice to know. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it there for this one. So I think this is a shorter one than usual, but we were really just focusing on that kind of safe place imagery, and there's not much more I can say to you regarding finding yours, other than, you know, think of a place that makes you feel calm, that isn't like your home. It can be imaginary, it can be like a fictional place, just somewhere that makes you feel calm, and just practice, you know, maybe at the end of the day, you know, just a few times a week, just really visualising yourself there, and the actual physical sensations, like that really helps. It's not just seeing the place and imagining yourself, like actually think about what you're feeling and what you're smelling and all those like sensory things, and you'll start to be able to do that more easily. I'm going to try doing that more. So yeah, I'll be, my imaginary self will be chilling out at Hever Castle Gardens very soon. Okay, I love you loads, and I will see you soon for the next video, because I've got my next session tomorrow actually. I'm off for a driving lesson. Right, I love you. See you soon. Already said that. Love you. Bye.